So what is it that keeps us going when everything just seems to fall apart? Today we're going to dive deep into one of the most fundamental questions of human existence. And our guide is a man who found answers in the absolute darkest places imaginable. This is a journey right to the heart of what it means to find a meaningful life.
I mean, really think about it for a second. When the world feels like it's collapsing around you, when suffering seems totally unavoidable, what is it that makes a person put one foot in front of the other? This question is the core of our whole explainer today, and believe me, the answer is way more powerful than you might think.
And this brilliant quote from Nietzsche? This is our launch pad. You see, the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl saw this as way more than just a clever philosophical idea. To him, it was a clinical reality. It was literally the key to survival, and it became the central pillar of his entire life's work.
To really truly understand what this means, we have to go somewhere incredibly dark. We've got to look at the story of Frankl himself, because his theories, well, they weren't cooked up in some comfortable office. They were forged in the abyss.
Now get this, the choice he made before he was even imprisoned says it all. It's 1941. Frankl has a visa to escape to America. He has safety, a future, right there in his hands. But he chose to stay in Vienna to take care of his elderly parents. He put his moral duty above his own survival. That single decision tells you everything you need to know about the philosophy he would build.
Inside the camps, Frankl couldn't turn off the psychiatrist part of his brain. He was always observing, always analyzing, and he documented this horrifying psychological journey that every prisoner went through. First, there was the initial crushing shock of this brutal new world. Then came a chilling but necessary apathy, an emotional shutdown really, just to survive the day-to-day horrors. And for the very few who made it out, there was this haunting final stage, a struggle to even feel connected to the world they had fought so hard to get back to.
And the social structure in there was just beyond brutal. At the top, you had the SS guards with absolute, unquestionable power. But then, there's this really cruel twist, the capos. These were fellow prisoners who were often forced to be even more brutal than the guards just to stay alive. And at the very bottom were the Muslimana. That was the term for those who had completely lost the will to live. Their hope was gone. And Frankl saw that this kind of existential despair was just as deadly as starvation or disease. But in the middle of all that unimaginable horror, Frankl noticed something incredible. The people who survived, they weren't always the biggest or the strongest physically. No, they were the ones who held on to a reason to live. Maybe it was a child they hoped to see again, a book they felt they had to write, or just the memory of a loved one they held in their heart. They found a why. So that profound observation, born from the absolute worst of humanity, became the foundation for a whole new way of thinking about psychology. Now we're going to zoom out from Frankl's personal story and look at why this need for purpose is so universal for all of us.
Frankl called his big idea logotherapy. The Greek word logos just means meaning, so it's literally healing through meaning. This was his answer to the problem of suffering. He argued that our deepest, most primal drive as human beings isn't for pleasure, and it's not for power, it's for meaning.
And you got to understand, this flew in the face of what the other giants of psychology were saying. You had Sigmund Freud, who said we're all driven by a will to pleasure. Then his student, Alfred Adler, who said no, it's a will to power. And then Frankl comes along and proposes this third way. He said you're both missing the biggest piece of the puzzle, the will to meaning. That's the force that truly makes us human.
Okay, so this sounds great, but how do we actually find this meaning? Well, Frankl was pretty practical about it. He gave us 3 clear paths. First, through our work, by creating something or making a contribution. Second, through love, by caring deeply for another person. And third, and this one is maybe the most profound of all, it's the attitude we choose to take when we're faced with suffering we absolutely cannot change. That, he said, is the last of the human freedoms, and no one can ever take it away from you.
And what's so cool is that Frankl's ideas basically laid the groundwork for modern theories, like something called terror management theory. It sounds complicated, but the core idea is pretty simple. Deep, deep down, we're all kind of terrified by the fact that we're not going to be here forever. And to deal with that terror, we create and believe in things that will outlast us, our culture, our family, our life's work. By doing that, we get a kind of symbolic immortality. It shows that the search for meaning isn't just a nice philosophical quest, it's a fundamental psychological need.
All right, let's bring this all right into our own lives today, because there's a really crucial distinction we need to make. We tend to use the words happy and meaningful almost like they're the same thing, but psychologically they are very, very different pursuits,
And understanding that difference, well, it's a game changer.
When that search for meaning is blocked, Frankl said we fall into what he called an existential vacuum. You know that feeling? It's that Sunday night emptiness, that deep sense of boredom, even after you've had a weekend full of fun stuff. It's the nagging feeling that even with all the comfort and all the pleasure, something really important is still missing.
And hey, this isn't just a theory anymore. Modern research, stuff published in places like the Journal of Positive Psychology, totally backs this up. Scientists have actually found clear, measurable differences between people who are chasing happiness and people who are building a life of meaning.
So just look at this breakdown. A happy life is usually focused on the present moment. It's about getting your needs met, satisfying your wants. It's kind of a taker orientation, and it's often linked to low stress. But a meaningful life, that's a whole different animal. It connects your past, your present, and your future. It's about being a giver. It's about purpose. And here's the real kicker. It often involves high stress and anxiety. Yeah, purpose isn't always comfortable.
And this brings us to Frankl's ultimate conclusion, which is a bit of a paradox. He said that if you chase happiness directly, it will always escape you. It's like trying to grab smoke. But if you dedicate yourself to a cause, to something bigger than yourself, then happiness just shows up on its own. It ensues, not as a goal, but as a beautiful unintended side effect.
And that brings us right back to the question that started this whole thing. The one Frankl believed was the most important question any of us could ever answer. He said it's not about what you expect from life, but what life expects from you. So I'll leave you with that. What is your why?